विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी भाष्यत्यादेशकारिणे जयत्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे राधा गोपीनाथ श्री राधे जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा माई जय सुदर्शना जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव। निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी मुखं करोति वाचालां भङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वराम्। हरि ओम तत्सत्। So sorry I couldn't make it for last week's class. We were a little busy with the preparations for the Rath Yatra. Had a glorious Rath Yatra. Hope all of you enjoyed the Rath Yatra last week. So we are continuing the chapter 11 where Krishna enters into Dwaraka. I think Abhishek Prabhu covered the first 10 verses, so I'm going to start with the 11th verse today. We'll go a little faster because these are explains the opulences of Dwaraka, and then certain points that we have already covered in the past classes. Whenever it's required, I'll talk, but we'll go a little faster during these verses. as we talk, because now the discussion between Krishna, the prayers of the Dwaraka citizens are over. The next few verses describe the opulence of Dwaraka. Dwaraka is very opulent like Vaikuntha. So we'll start with text 11. Translation. As Bhogavati, the capital of Nagaloka, is protected by the Nagas, so was Dwaraka protected by the descendants of Vrishni, Bhoja, Madhu, Dasharha, Arha, Kukura, Andaka, etc., who were as strong as Lord Krishna. So the first thing that talks about is the strength or the power of Dwaraka city. In material world, power is greatly appreciated. Anyone who is powerful, people want to go behind him. When a prime minister comes, or when the president of a country comes, when somebody is in a powerful post, people generally admire, follow, and take to them. So power doesn't come by terror somebody, but power comes by protecting somebody. So this is very essential, right? This is the basics of Kshatriya Dharma. That is, I give protection. The Kshatriyas, they give protection to the citizens, and in turn, the citizens give power. In the sense, they empower the king. They accept him as their leader and follow the rules and regulations that are laid down by the king. So these two are very important, right? This is very important for a preacher as well. Generally, we want to give instruction, right? We want to give instruction so that people will come up in devotional service. But before we give instruction, we are supposed to give protection. That is, we need to create a relationship, right? Once that relationship exists, and in that relationship, we can give instruction. Otherwise, we are not supposed to give instruction to anybody. So anyway, here it talks about how the Dwaraka city is protected by such powerful people, because those days it was very important. Even today, the country that has the highest military power is considered the greatest country, right? US is considered superpower because of its military power. And now China wants to fight. It's in the material world, it's always circulating. Somebody is powerful one time, and next somebody becomes. Hundred years back, Britain was the greatest power. They called themselves the land where sun never sets. But now, even within United Kingdom, Scotland, and everybody wants to move away, Ireland. So it's a cycle. So that's either that. Actually, even the Dwaraka that came down. When all the Vrishnis left, it became, so in the material world, everything, Krishna wanted to show that everything is temporary. So anyway, the first one talks about this, how like Nagaloka, it is compared to Nagaloka, because generally the Nagas, they are very powerful. That's why we see the drink that Nagas drink, when Bhima drank that same nectar that the Nagas particularly drink, he got the strength of 10,000 elephants. So their drink actually adds them the power, and the snakes that are living in Nagaloka are very powerful. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that in Nagaloka there is no sun. As you go down, there is no sun. It's full night, all partying. That's what the Rakshasas and all of them like. So as you go Atala, Vittala, Sutala, the opulence is very high. Let's not mistake that life is not miserable in these lower planets. It's only hell. Actually, the opulence in the lower planets is much higher than even heavenly planets. The Asuras who live down, they have a much higher opulence, much higher what you call as the standard of life that we call today. But in higher planetary system, along with this higher standard of life, there is devotion as well. They all follow the rules and regulations. Whereas in lower mode, it doesn't happen. So in Nagaloka, there is no light. So it's all the hood jewels. They have the Nagas have a jewel on their head, and then that gives light, and in that they enjoy. So that is anyway the previous verse, text 12. The city of Dwarakapuri was filled with opulences of all seasons. There were hermitages, orchards, flower gardens, parks, and reservoirs of water breeding lotus flowers all over. So this explains the opulence, and Prabhupada explains what is the real opulence in a society. The real opulence is not money, gold, all these, iPhone and, Samsung phone. We think these are all opulence. 55 inch, somebody is considered very opulent, but though that is basically considered nonsense. Prabhupada writes that how um, there were fruit bearing tree everywhere. Anybody can pluck a fruit, eat, and enjoy. There is no poverty. Prabhupada writes about how today's world, somebody, if only rich can have all these things. They can have a nice garden, they can have fruit-bearing trees in their house and all. Otherwise, poor people have to live in slums, or they become homeless and they have to sleep on the road. And we call ourselves a very advanced country. Same with all Western countries. And in India, as factories and mills grow, Prabhupada writes in the purport that all these are Ugra Karma. And they produce one side, maybe few people are very rich, they have this lifestyle, but the rest of them, they are all living in slums, in small houses, 2 feet by 3 feet house, 5 people are living, no drinking water, no toilet, nothing. It's a horrible condition. And we call ourselves a very advanced civilization. Right? There is nothing advanced. Whereas we see here, Dwaraka, everybody had access to all these things. It had, they were so rich that they were able to clean their roads with scented water. The verse about, the roads were cleaned with, next verse we will see. So it's such the opulence, not some, Prabhupada writes about how, today we plant trees just for the sake of, beauty, which has no fruits which can be enjoyed by anybody. Prabhupada says that were considered inauspicious. And they were never, all along the roads, there were fruit-bearing trees were mangoes, coconut trees, mangoes, plantain, banana tree, all these different fruits were, bearing trees were planted so that, everybody can get benefited from it. These are all the signs of opulence, right? Opulence means you have a very relaxed life. If somebody is very rich, they have a very relaxed life. Here we see that, residents of Dwaraka, they don't have to work very hard to get some food. Sleeping, eating, mating, defending, it all happened very nicely for them. Verse 13. The city gateway, the household doors, and the festooned arches along the roads were all nicely decorated with festive signs like plantain trees and mango leaves, all to welcome the Lord. Flags and painted signs and slogans all combined to shade the sunshine. So they were so, in separation from the Lord, even though he had gone only for a few months. By the time he returned, they were feeling so much separation from Krishna that they created a festival. Nitya Mahotsava. We learn that in Dwarakapuri, in spiritual world, it's Nitya Mahotsava. Every day is a festival in Vrindavan. Every time Krishna comes out is a festival. So the moment Krishna comes, they created a huge festival with, everything was, the Gopura, what Srila Prabhupada writes as the city gateway, Gopura. If you see, even today, if you go to South Indian temples, you'll see a huge Gopura. The Gopura is the front arch will go all the way, 10-story, 12-story, 15-story Gopuras you will see even now, which were built like 2000 years back. So we can see here how opulent the city was. It was not just the temples. The whole city was surrounded by these gopuras, the huge towers, beautiful towers decorated with, very fine, minute carvings. Okay, and then, they were all decorated. The other thing is they were all decorated with the plantain trees. Again, even now, if you go to South India, if you see any marriage, or any for that, in any case, you see marriages or any auspicious thing happening, festivals happening, you'll see outside the house on the doorway they'll tie the plantain tree. They'll cut whole plantain tree, they'll bring it and put on both the sides. So it's a sign of opulence and auspiciousness. Plantain tree, particularly banana tree, is actually from heavenly planets. It doesn't belong to the earth. It actually came from heavenly planets. That's why if you see that every part of banana tree can be used, nothing goes for waste. The leaves are used, we can eat on the leaves. It's considered to serve food in plantain leaf is considered in the Shastra to be higher than even serving in a golden plate. So if you see South Indian temples, they will offer it to the Lord in banana leaf. It's very opulent, biodegradable. It's very pure. It adds to health. There was a research that was done that showed that people who eat in banana leaf, their iron content is high. They did so many research on that. It is auspicious in every sense. Nowadays we eat and play, wash it with a chemical. We had so many nonsense actually. Or we buy plastic plates. These are all very degraded stuff. Plastic is a very degraded stuff, because it comes from crude oil. Crude oil is considered, those days it was considered a part of garbage, earth's garbage. And we create a plate out of it and we eat in that. So that's why we get diseases. So plastic, this was true even a few days back. Even now, if you go to my hometown, our village, my uncle or my grandfather and all, I've never seen them eat in a plate. They always eat in a, because they get it very, they have many plantain trees in the back of their house. They'll just go pluck fresh trees, bring it and serve food in that and eat it. So here we see that plantain trees, mango leaves, toranam. There's a word that used here is toranam. It's basically the beautiful decoration of the mango leaves they put. It's very auspicious. It creates a lot of auspiciousness. You see the culture, you see that even now if you go to South Indian festivals, you'll see all these things happening. You'll see a toranam of mango leaves. You'll see the plantain trees. So the culture has been handed over by thousands of years. Prabhupada says, even now culture is left in India. So we should learn all these things, and we should try to carry forward, because we have inherited the spiritual the spirituality from we are the one who's going to carry the Gaudiya Parampara. So all these things, when we learn from Bhagavatam, we should try to implement it. And then putting rangoli with the rice flour, these are all considered very auspicious. So it talks about all those things. Flags, everywhere flags were kept, and garlands. And Prabhupada also writes in the purport, the flags were painted with, Hanuman and, Garuda, the great servants of Lord. They were considered great servants. They were painted to create auspiciousness. So nowadays people go and write in, if you see all the walls, they put bad words. That is what is considered very great today. But we see those days, everything was done in an auspicious way. You can do graffiti, but the graffiti was done in a very auspicious way. Right? It's no permanent markers or nothing. Beautiful. Every time they wanted, they will create new designs in the road. They can draw in the road. If you see, last week, if you see the Puri Ratha Yatra, they put a beautiful painting, or rangoli from all the way from Jagannath Mandir until Gundicha Mandir. They'll put big rangolis, beautiful ones, for the pleasure of the Lord. So these are all very important. Text 14. The highways, subways, lanes, markets, public meeting places were all thoroughly cleansed and then moistened with scented water. And to welcome the Lord, fruits, flowers, and unbroken seeds were strewn everywhere. So this was the verse that I was talking about. That Dwaraka was so opulent. It was so opulent that all the highways were, washed with scented water. Prabhupada writes about how they'll put the rose petals in the water, and then the scent will go into the water, and that water was used to cleanse the whole highways and subways and marketplaces, everything. Perfect. It was perfectly clean, sparkling clean and smelling nice, everything, because it is for Krishna's pleasure. You need to understand, it's Krishna enters and he is going to go meet everybody and go to his house, right? Now, why is everything else kept clean? Because they understood that everything belongs to Krishna. The whole Dwaraka Puri, everything belongs to Krishna. It's not, I have a shop in, even though I own the shop, ultimately Krishna is the owner. So for his pleasure, I will keep it neat. The same thing they had for public. Today we have to teach people to be, to be very clean. This is your place. Don't, don't throw garbage in public places. All those things we need to teach. But those days, when you become a devotee, it becomes natural. because you see everything as the as belonging to the Lord, so you naturally keep everything clean. So the temple, it's not that just the temple room has to be clean. That the rooms, our houses, the place we live in, we may have a altar, have only photo of Radha Gopinath, but the moment we keep the altar, we are saying that this house belongs to you. So the moment we say that, we need to keep our house pretty clean and well scented and very nice. And we see that how much fruits and flowers, everything was strewn everywhere, unbroken seed. Even now, if you see, when there is a housewarming ceremony, you'll see that on the gateway they'll put paddy, or unbroken seeds, and the couple who is entering the house have to put their leg on that and then enter the house, because it's all considered very auspicious. These are all cultural aspects that we should learn. Nowadays, we are, as the devotees, we can't say I'm a devotee, I won't follow, because if Dwaraka says it has been followed in spiritual world, why as a devotee will not follow here? If we follow here, then we will get trained in it and we'll become perfect when we go there. Whatever we do, we are training ourselves to serve the Lord perfectly. It's not that the cultural aspect is different and devotional service is different. Cultural aspect is part of devotional service. It's a way to serve the Lord. So we should ingrain these into our life. Otherwise, it will not make sense to us. And then we have to learn everything again when we go to the spiritual world. So better learn it here when we have time. Text 15. In each and every door of residential houses, auspicious things like curd, unbroken fruits, sugarcane, and full water pots with articles for worship, incense, and candles were all displayed. So as you see, in every house, they had made things ready for the Lord. Everybody wanted to invite Krishna to come to their house. So as if Krishna was going, everybody has decorated their house in such a way that Krishna is coming. So here the word Purna Kumbham is used. Purna Kumbham is like a pot which is very beautifully decorated, and then inside they'll put water, a purified water. They'll chant Vedic mantras, and they will request all the pure rivers, all the holy rivers to come inside, and then they'll keep some nice mango leaves, and on top of it they'll put a coconut, and then they'll decorate everything with flowers, and that is actually given and shown as of welcome to the one who's entering the house. When when spiritual master comes, this is the way we should invite them. You see that when Srila Prabhupada went to South India, that's how Srila Prabhupada was welcomed. Because these are all Purna Kumbham. Even now, when great kings and all those things come, or chief ministers come, they give. But actually, originally, it is for the Lord. So they give Purna Kumbham. They will invite them to the inside the house. And then, as you can see, they also keep sugarcane. And then they also had kept Aarti plate ready. They had Dhupa, Deepa, that is incense. Dhupa is incense. Deepa is your Aarti, the lamp show. All of this was kept ready. Because every day this is how we should Lord with Dhupa, Arati. Every day we should show Arati to Krishna at our house. These are all some basic things. Otherwise, we cannot call our house a house of the Lord. If we want to call our house of the Lord, then we should have minimum standard. We should bring some little flowers, nice flowers, and then offer it to the deity. Whether if we have a deity or a photo, we should offer. Then we should show incense. Then we should show a lamp. Every day we should do all these things. They not only bring auspiciousness to the house, but it becomes auspicious to others as well. Text 6 and 17. On that most dear Krishna was approaching Dwaraka Dhama, magnanimous Vasudeva, Akrura, Ugrasena, Balarama, the superhumanly powerful Pradyumna, Charudeshna, and Samba, the son of Jambavati, all extremely happy, abandoned resting, sitting, and dining. So all of them were doing different activities as Krishna was about to enter. And as soon as they heard that Krishna is going to come inside, they left whatever they were doing and they ran towards Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he writes about each one of them. Vasudeva, not Vasudeva is Krishna. Vasudeva is his father. Vasudeva was the father of Lord Krishna, Devaki's husband. He was the minister of Ugrasena, who was the king of Vrishnis, and who was the father of Kamsa. So he married, Kamsa's sister Devaki and Krishna's mother. And Vasudeva is also the brother of Kunti Maharani. That's how he became cousin to the Pandavas. So Vasudeva, as soon as he heard that his son Krishna has come, he started running towards to see Krishna. And then Akrura is the commander-in-chief of the Vrishnis, and he was the one who was sent by Kamsa to bring Krishna and Balram from Vrindavan. Akrura was the one. He is a great devotee of the Lord. Of the 9 devotional services, prayer comes to prayers. Prayers is represented by Akrura. Each devotional service, we represent one devotee. Shravanam is Parikshit Maharaj. Kirtanam is Sukadeva Goswami. And like that, each one has one devotee. Dasyam is Hanuman. Similarly, for prayers, it's Akrura. And Ugrasena, as I said, he was the king. He was the father of Kamsa. He was jailed by Kamsa, and then he became a king even when his father, because it's traditionally, it is culture that only after the old king retires, takes Vanaprastha, and the son becomes the king. Or if the old king dies in a war, then the son becomes the king. But we see that in the case of Kamsa, he actually father along with Vasudeva and Devaki in the jail, and he became the king. Then later, when Krishna killed Kamsa, he made Ugrasena back the king of all the Vrishnis. Baladeva, then it talks about Baladev. Srila Prabhupada writes a big purport about Baladev. Baladev is the son of Rohini Mata, who is the other wife of Vasudeva, and he grew up with Krishna in Vrindavan. Prabhupada writes that Nanda Maharaj and became his foster father. So that was the foster house for Baladev. They were stepbrothers, but they were very close to each other. Baldev, even though he was the elder brother, he always followed what Krishna wanted, because there are 2 aspects of Bhagavan, and the second aspect, the first aspect is Krishna himself. The second aspect is the servitor Bhagavan, the one who acts as a servant. So all services proceed from Baldev. That's why we approach Krishna through Balram. We can never go to Krishna directly. We have to go through Balaram, and Balaram is the Adi Guru, and all the spiritual masters, they are representatives of Lord Baladev or the Prabhu, who are non-different from Baladev. And they teach to serve Krishna, because in every possible way, Baladev teaches us how to serve Krishna. He serves Krishna, he is his bed, he is his chair, he is his pen, he is his sacred thread, he is his dress, he is his dham, everything. He manifests himself in every possible way to serve Krishna. And then it talks about the sons Pradyumna and Charudeshana. They too are the sons of Krishna and Rukmini Devi. Pradyumna particularly is considered as one of the Vyuhas. We have 4 Chaturvyuha form of Krishna: Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshana. So he is one of them, and he is also considered as an incarnation of Kamadeva. Appeared as son of Krishna, Pradyumna. He was a great warrior. And then Charudeshana was also another son of Krishna and Rukmini. Krishna had 10 sons through each of his wife. So there were 200,000 sons, nearly 200,000 sons of Krishna, and then each of them had 10. So just Krishna and his immediate family were more than 2 million people. Prabhupada writes in the purport in the previous chapter, he writes that just Krishna and his family is more than 1 million people. Then it talks about Samba, one of the other sons of Krishna, but he is through Jambavati. Jambavati is the daughter of Jambavan, the king of bears, who fought in Ramayana war along with Lord Rama. His daughter was given in marriage to Krishna, Jambavati, and their son was Samba, who was a very powerful warrior. And actually, it was Samba who was dressed as a woman. And when rishis came to Dwaraka, some of the young boys, they wanted to make fun, so they dressed Samba as a girl, and they they put some, they put a lump in his tummy, and made as if he is pregnant. and presented before the rishis, and the rishis became very angry and cursed, saying that a lump of iron will become the cause of the destruction of their whole dynasty. And Samba, the next day he gave birth to a lump of iron, and which actually became the cause of destruction for the whole Yadu dynasty. Text 18. They hastened toward the Lord on chariots, with Brahmanas bearing flowers. Before them were elephants, emblems of good fortune. Conch shells and bugles were sounded, and Vedic hymns were chanted. Thus they offered their respects, which were saturated with affection. So all of them, they ran and they went all Brahmanas. Again, everywhere, everybody goes to the Lord, never alone. Should always be accompanied by devotees. It's a culture. Even when the king goes to see the Lord in the deity form, he doesn't go alone. He is surrounded by the Brahmanas. There are Vedic mantras that are chanted. There are musical instruments that are played. So there is auspiciousness. This sound creates auspiciousness, and at the same time, the reason all these instruments are played is because their sound will, muffle any inauspicious sound anybody is making. So it's a very important culture that we don't use bad words, we don't utter bad things. So today's culture, it is very, very what you call as fashionable to curse or use, bad language. People say, what the hell, and or they use other bad words, because we think it's all, we are showing our frustration. Only that when we talk all these things, we are just inviting more trouble. Because in the Shastra, we understand that there are 33 crore devatas, right? And some of the devatas, they keep on traveling in the air. And their job is to keep on, granting whatever people talk. So if we talk anything negative, if the devatas those devatas are passing by us, they will grant it and grow away. So if we talk about hell, and that's what we will get. So it is very important that we don't use, those days people were very conscious what they talked. Never uttered, even in anger, they will not utter inauspicious things. So, the people were very conscious and cautious, right? But today we are, we talk about all those things. People watch ghost movies, people talk about ghost stories. These are all considered very inauspicious. They attract these entities actually. So when these sounds were, made, what happens is that these entities, negative entities, and the evil, things are washed away. So that's why, we request devotees to play kartal and mridanga. Again, they are manifestations of Balram, and they produce so much auspiciousness in our life, so that no negative energy is sustained in the atmosphere. Next test 19. At the same time, many hundreds of well-known prostitutes began to proceed on the various vehicles. They were all very eager to meet the Lord, and their beautiful faces were decorated with dazzling earrings, which enhanced the beauty of their foreheads. So, this is a very interesting verse, and there is a very, very big purport Srila Prabhupada has written actually for this verse. This verse talks about prostitutes. So then the first question we talk is how can there be prostitutes in Dwaraka, which is a spiritual world, right? And because prostitute is first thing is it goes against the fourth regulative principle, right? It's generally considered very degrading. But here we see that the prostitutes existed even in Dwaraka. And Srila Prabhupada writes about, different kinds of, different parts of the society allowed to function, for certain reasons. So he's saying there are certain men who are of low character who need to break the fourth regulative principles, and so there are a class of women who are allowed to do this what you call as profession, uh, to satisfy those men, so that they don't pollute the general society. So what Prabhupada is talking about is there is an element of impurity in everybody's heart, and some men can't control their impulses, right? So instead of them being part of the society and polluting the society, that part was taken away from the society and kept as a separate part, so that if somebody has to do nonsense, then they can go and do nonsense, thereby not polluting the other part of the society. It's like, when you have cancer, you have to, burn that part away, right? And so that, it doesn't spread to the other parts of the body. Similarly, there were certain characters, it has to be allowed, right? Srila Prabhupada, in one other part, he also talks about meat eating, actually. He talks that, meat eating was allowed in the Vedic culture, but only after an animal has a natural death. This is actually true even now in India, because I remember, even now if you go to many villages, they people, because those days everybody will have cows at their house. There were a group of or a particular caste. Their profession is basically to go around the village and collect the dead cows after the cow has died naturally, and then remove the skin, and then use it for leather, and then the rest of the part of the body was consumed as meat. Because some people, some portion of the society, they need to survive on meat. They cannot live without meat. So but even they were allowed to live in the society. See, these are certain things that we need to understand as a preachers, that we can't condemn people just because they are meat eaters, or they break the fourth regulative principles, or they by profession they were prostitutes. Anybody can become a devotee of the Lord. Anybody can achieve purity, right? So there were certain sections of the society, but doesn't mean that as devotees we can indulge in them. Once we have learned and understood, we should control and we should come out of it. There is no question, there is no compromise in that. But at the same time, as a preacher, we cannot condemn saying, oh, this guy is a meat eater, no point in preaching. And that was the biggest problem of the Gaudiya Math people who went to the West to preach. So they went to the West. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he sent 4 of his very senior disciples to London. And then they tried for a long time. Then after many months, they came back and said it's absolutely not possible to preach in the West, because they are all meat eaters, they are unclean, they don't have any moral principles when it comes to relations. All these things they presented to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But whereas we see Srila Prabhupada was extremely successful, because he understood that the background of the society that they're in. Because in Western countries, before Srila Prabhupada went, there was very limited information of why you should be a vegetarian, or why you should not avoid meat, and how to be vegetarian. Even to even have tasty vegetarian food was not possible those days. Right? Today we have thousands of restaurants all over the world, but those days it was not possible. So Srila Prabhupada understood the society, and he preached to them accordingly. And slowly, through devotional service, he brought them out. Right? So then we can ask then the next question, so certain section of the society will still eat meat and will still indulge in activities like this. They may, so they may, they may indulge in unwanted activities. But as preachers, we do not condemn them, but we should help them to become devotees slowly. Not on day one you go and tell you are a rascal, you are this, that, you are eating meat. No. As all of us have come from some because Kali Yuga, we are all Kali Yuga products. We are all Kali Yuga. All of us have some kind of problem. We have all slowly coming out of it by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Similarly, when we preach, we need to keep all these things in our, so even when Krishna manifested Dwaraka Dham, he manifested certain portion of it, which is according to the material world, to teach the material world. So when we may ask a question, okay, this all makes sense why prostitutes should exist in the society, but what is the need of prostitutes in Dwaraka? That may be our question. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that this was created in order to, set the society certain, demarkifications, show how the world has to be run. So even as devotees, we need to understand that there will be some sections of the society that will not be perfect. They will have their problems, but that doesn't mean we will not engage them in their devotional service. Here we see that even they are unalloyed devotees. Otherwise, they will not be living in Dwaraka. But they took that profession, because Krishna wanted them to show some example to the world. Otherwise, they were all pure devotees. But even in that profession, they were still pure because they are all devotees of Krishna. So we need to understand that. And there also we have to be a clear line. We cannot say, oh, in Bhagavatam, in Dwaraka, it talks about it, so it is not, it is right. No, it is for the worst section of the society. As a Varnashrama as a whole, if it has to function, there has to be some outlet, right? For doing non-Varnashrama activities. Otherwise, it will become too restrictive. And when it is too restrictive, it will explode. Because restrictions, it has to come externally, no doubt about it. Also, it has to come internally. More important aspect is the internal restriction, not external restriction, right? It's not about others telling that you should not do it. It's about we understanding and we assimilating it, not imitating it. When we imitate, we will definitely fail. But we should assimilate it. We should surrender. We should accept it wholeheartedly, and then it will become natural. Until that time, that cannot happen to the whole society, right? This can happen only to, because Krishna says, out of 1 million people, only one will be interested in spiritual life, and out of such a person, 1 in a million only will become perfect. But at the same time, as a devotee, we need to think of the whole society. So there are certain parts of the society that has to function. But what we have done in the name of breaking Varnashrama society is we have made everybody break the fourth regulative principles. Anybody can have relationship with anybody. Both men and women are completely impure. So what we have done is we have inculcated the culture into the society rather than having it as a separate part of the society, which is what is being explained here. So it's very important that all these things are understood. And as a devotees, we need to understand the purpose behind it and not follow this. This is not for us to follow. This is just for us to understand everything was within the square. Nothing was left out. Nobody was left out in the scheme of things. Everybody was included, and everybody was given a chance to go up to the ladder. Srila Prabhupada writes that even these prostitutes in India traditionally, they had such high knowledge, spiritual knowledge. He gives the example of Chintamani and Bilvamangala Thakur. Bilvamangala Thakur, he was so addicted to that Chintamani, she was a prostitute, that on the day his father died, he ran, it was heavy rain, there was a flooding, he swam, sat on a crocodile, crossed the river, he went to the town and he caught us and climbed the door and then knocked the door of her bedroom, and then she opened the door and she said, how have you come in such a situation? Then he explained, I came like this. And then she said, if you had even a fraction of attraction that you have for me, for this flesh and bone, if you have for the Lord, you would be a great elevated soul. And when she said that, it struck Bilvamangala Thakur so much that at that moment he gave up everything, and then he became a pure devotee of the Lord. And throughout his writing, Srila Prabhupada also writes this in the purport. If you read his poems, it's the first poem he pays is Dandavats to Chintamani, because he considered her as his spiritual master. She was the one who showed him the way. Bilvamangala Thakura was such a great elevated soul that his poems were read by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu used to, Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Rai used to sing the songs of Bilvamangala Thakur in the night, and Mahaprabhu used to, go in deep ecstasy hearing them. That's how high elevated Bilvamangala Thakur was, and his spiritual master was a prostitute. That's how high the culture was in India. But now we have made, even a prostitute was spiritually elevated. But now we have inverted the situation. Even people who call themselves spiritually elevated behave like prostitutes. That's where our society is currently in. This whole modern society, this is what we have created. Whereas the old spiritual society, thousands of years back, even a prostitute had such high spiritual knowledge. Text 20. Expert dramatist, artist, dancers, singers, historians, genealogists, and learned speakers all gave their respective contributions, being inspired by the superhuman pastimes of the Lord. Thus they proceeded on and on. So Srila Prabhupada talks about how all of them were engaged in the service. It's not that those days they did not have entertainment. They had cinema, they had drama. Actually, if you see, their quality was very high because they will practice the same. They most of them, they will do certain drama over and over again. So they became very expert in it, and they also will relish it very highly. Right? Even now, if you go, in South India, there's a place where they every on a year-on-year basis they do the pastimes of Narsingadev, and they say actually that Narsingadev enters the body of the artist when they are performing that particular pastime, because they these artists, they approach their art with so much devotion actually. They know that they are representing the Lord, and the person who acts as Hiranyakashipu, the one who acts as Prahlad, one who acts as Narsinghadev, they all take it so seriously and they practice it with so much devotion that when they do the drama, actually the Lord and his associates, they manifest in this dramas, and they do it, a family after the same family, they will do the same role, and so they became expert in it actually. For thousands of years, they are drama. So no one of today's world can come near them because they are so pure in their approach, and they are all devoted. They were also devoted. These people we are talking about, they were all, even though in traditional they are considered as Shudras, they were very highly respected because they were great devotees. It's not Krishna, manifest his through Brahmanas. Even through Shudras, he can manifest his pastime. We see that, when they act, people will get moved, will cry. Even in this Chaitanya Charitamrita, it talks about how Ramananda Rai used to train the dancing girls of Lord Jagannath. They were called Devadasis, right? So even 100 years back, they had the system, but then, the modern British government and later the Indian government abolished the system. Every temple will have girls who will perform dance and drama for the deity. Traditionally, many families, they will donate one of their kids to this. They will be supported by the temple. They will live. They will live. Their only purpose in life is to dance and serve the Lord. And when they become old, they will become the trainers of the next generation. They will become directors, dance directors. So like that, many people lived their life. They are artists. Many people have many artistic, and they all used it in the service of the Lord. So Krishna conscious is not like white and black. It's full of colors actually. Everything can be used in the service of the Lord. So these drama people, they were highly regarded. It is said that actually they came when Prithu Maharaj, if you read, when we'll as we go, we will learn the first set of singers, dancers, and dramatists. They were created along with Prithu Maharaj, the incarnation of the Lord. Primarily, the purpose for to glorify Prithu Maharaj and spread his glories everywhere. So traditionally, drama, singing, dancing, these are all actually considered as a way of spreading the holy name of the Lord and the glories of the Lord. They are very important instruments. They exist from the time of Prithu Maharaj. That is from Satya Yuga. It is there. They are all actually very pure, culture, or what you call as a pure professions. But they are today very polluted because they have all moved away completely from the Lord. The purpose is completely lost. And then Prabhupada talks about how these dramatists, artists, dancers, they were from Shudra community, but they were highly regarded. And at the same time, it also talks about historians, genealogists, and learned speakers. These will be from the Brahmana community. So you see that they were both coming together to serve the Lord. There was no, this artificial, you are higher, I am lower, was created later. You see here how everybody, according to whatever talent they got, they used it in the service of the Lord. Historians will talk about the glories of his. When we talk about history, it talks about Puranas, right? Sutas. Suta means professional historians. What is the history? Sutta Goswami talked the whole Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is our history. Purana means history actually. So when we talk about historians, people who narrate, Puranas. Then we have learned speakers, people who give class like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Brahas, who was an incarnate. They were all Brahmanas who will give classes on the glory. Some people like philosophy, some people will like stories. But both were used for the purpose of making everybody into devotees. And then genealogist, because genealogy was considered very important in Vedic culture, right? We need to because as I said, everybody is considered as a descendant of rishis. We are all descendant of rishis. As we saw in the previous verse, there was even a rishi who lived in the Western countries, right? So all human beings come from Manu and the rishis. They were all descendants of various rishis. So when we understand, we are, as I said, traditionally in Vedic culture, when you introduce yourself, you don't tell your name first or your profession. I am a software engineer. No, it is of no use. They will say first, I am from such a family. I am a descendant of this rishi. I belong to this gotra. This gotra is founded by these rishis. These are my forefathers. And through in that line, I have come. And then at the end, I will say, my name is so and so. Please bless me. This is how we introduce ourselves to elders. So this Rishi Mula is, anything has to have a Rishi Mula. So that was explained here, how, the genealogists, they were also there to explain, the genealogy of various people and praise Lord Krishna. Text 21. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, approached them and offered due honor and respect to each and every one of their friends, relatives, citizens, and others who came to receive and welcome him. So this talks about how Krishna, Prabhupada writes, beautiful purport. He reciprocates with every one of them in the way that is fit for them to be received and reciprocated. Because everybody relates to Krishna in some way. So every one of them relates to Krishna in a particular way. So, and they expect something from Krishna, and Krishna reciprocates back with each one of them in the way that behooves or expected out of him in that relationship. So Prabhupada writes, this verse is very important because it talks about how Krishna is so personal. Krishna is never impersonal. It's not like, everybody came to receive him. He make everybody stand and then he gave a speech and then vanished. That is considered very impersonal. Krishna is never impersonal. He's very personal. He talks with every one of them. He reciprocates with every one of them. Some people he prays Dandavat, some people he accepts the Dandavat, some people he makes jokes, some people he acts as a master. It depends upon the relationship each living entity has. Krishna reciprocates with them in that particular mood. For every one of them, he doesn't neglect anybody. We'll see that in the next verse as well. Krishna is very personal. And the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord, who is not different from Krishna, and he is also very personal. The reason that I am saying that is we should inculcate this mood when we go to the temple. When we have this mood very strongly, because sometimes we feel that we are not able to, like how we have a relationship with our husband, daughter, son, and wife, and whoever it is. Sometimes we feel that we may not have the same relationship with the deities. The reason is we still don't see him in a very personal form. That personal concept of God has not gone inside, and that's why that relationship is not established. The moment we want to see Krishna in a personal form, Krishna will reciprocate to us immediately in this personal form, in a very personal way that is very personal to us. This is not only true for the deity Vigraha, but it is also true for Harinam. When you chant, when we chant the holy name, when we say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, when we chant that holy name, Krishna will reciprocate with us and he will create a relationship that is very personal to us. And we can feel that if we want that relationship. So then the kind, Prabhu, I don't have that mood to create that relationship with the Lord. I still don't want to relate to the Lord in a personal. There's no desire to relate to the Lord in the personal. And Gaur Govind Maharaj gives a very simple answer to that. He says, if you don't have the desire to have that relationship, cry that you don't have the relationship, desire to have that relationship. And if you can't cry that you don't have a desire to have a personal relationship, cry that you can't cry that you don't have the desire to. So that is the only way. We need to develop that desire in the heart, or at least we should have the desire to have the desire, or at least the desire to have the desire to create the relationship with the Lord. Only when we do that, then we can move on to the next step, and then finally we will create that relationship with the holy name. Then this whole holy chanting of holy name will be very, very tasty. That's when ruchi will come, the taste will come. Why we are suffering? Because there is no taste. Why there is no taste? Because there is no relationship. And why there is no relationship? Because there is no desire from our side. So the problem starts and ends with us. Krishna is waiting with his arms open. He is waiting. As you can see, he is ready. There were millions of people in Dwaraka. All of them came to see the Lord. And Krishna greeted every one of them personally. Not, oh, it's a 2 million people have come, 20 million people have come. I'll get a mic and I'll talk on a loudspeaker, everybody here, and then I'll go away. That is human capacity. But Krishna's capacity is that is he can relate personally with every living entity. So we should learn to develop that desire to have that personal, we should hanker, Krishna, I don't have any feeling for you. I don't have any reciprocation with you. I am not feeling the reciprocation. I am not able to feel that relationship with you. So we should have, at least we should cry that we don't have that reciprocation. Or at least we should have the, feeling that I don't have the feeling, I'm not having all these feelings, it is not manifesting. My heart is like a stone. So these feelings are not manifesting in me. So we should have that desire that my heart should melt and these feelings should come in my heart. And when we pray that, then there will be a reciprocation. And then once the reciprocation comes, nobody can stop us from doing devotional service. Then it will start flowing from internally. Even not stop. Like Srila Prabhupada, I've given this example multiple times. Srila Prabhupada used to feel, I'm wasting my life sleeping 2 hours a day. His love for Krishna was so strong that he felt that he was wasting 2 hours every day by sleeping. He considered that as a waste of time, and he considered that that he's not doing service. There is anxiety that the 2 hours he's not doing service. It's so because that love is so internal. It has the reciprocation with Krishna is so strong internally that he cannot stop reciprocating back to Krishna. If we want to achieve that state, we need to start developing desire for that state, and then slowly that personal relationship is be established. And once that reciprocation happens, then nobody can stop us from having that relationship with Krishna. It will be so strong that our devotional service will not have the graph of going up and down. One day I feel like doing, next day it is down. All these problems will go away. So it's very important for us to do this. With this verse, I will stop the class today. I know it's 10-15 minutes earlier, but we have again some services. So this week we'll finish it little early. We'll finish at 11 o'clock itself. And We'll continue our class next week. If you have any doubts, as usual, you can write a message to me or call me 0414018739. So we will take it from there, and we'll continue our class next week. Please, if you have any questions, send it to me. Thank you. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol.